A woman in Georgia has been charged with murder following a medication abortion, and this could set up a challenge to the state's constitution. Abortion rights advocates say this is the first case since Georgia put a 6-week abortion ban in place. Now, according to the arrest warrant, the woman delivered a 22 to 24-week fetus in December with, quote, cardiac activity. The newborn died within an hour. Ashley Parker is back with me. Joining me here on set, Charles Coleman, former Brooklyn prosecutor and MS Now legal analyst. We should say, Charles, other women have been charged with murder or attempted murder since the overturning of Roe v. Wade, but very few cases have actually advanced. Could this one be different?
It might. And I think, Chris, one of the things that we have in this case is what's alleged to be hard evidence in terms of the pills that were taken, the misoprostol that was taken by the suspect in this case versus the other cases which don't necessarily have as much for prosecutors to go on. At the same time, I do expect that we will see appeals and strong objections to the Constitution as it is framed right now in the state of Georgia. I think that there are going to be attempts to sort of get around that law. I think the circumstances of this case and how they came about also make this somewhat unique, and it will be very interesting to see how prosecutors approach it.
Yeah, there was a 2024 poll, Ashley, that found 84% of Americans don't believe those who've had an abortion should face penalties. They shouldn't face fines or jail time. But if this case in Georgia does proceed, you have to wonder about the political implications in an election year. And the specifics of this case, right, are a little more complicated than some others.
Right. The specifics of this case are incredibly complicated, but the outcome potentially could have broader ramifications for all manner of use of, for instance, the abortion pills that were used in this case. I would just remind you and viewers that many women who are suffering, for instance, a miscarriage of a very desperately wanted pregnancy find themselves, for reasons of emotional or physical health, taking these pills after the fetus is no longer viable. And so there's all manner of different cases and different specifics that could be affected by this. And I think depending on the outcome, there will certainly or could certainly be political ramifications, because as we've seen before, and especially when Trump is not on the top of the ticket, when he's not on the ballot, that these issues of abortion rights are incredibly galvanizing for both sides, frankly. But more recently, politically, have benefited the left.
So, Charles, 13 states ban abortion completely. 5, including Georgia, ban it after 6 weeks. But if this case proceeds, what are you going to be watching for? There is this question about every state having its own specific limitations, women having to go across borders. Where are we with this?
You're right to point out the sort of confusion that exists in trying to prosecute these sorts of cases, because you have jurisdictional issues, you have temporal issues, you have all sorts of things that, as a former prosecutor, I can tell you, when you're talking about bringing a case in front of a jury, the issue becomes the notion of reasonable doubt. So establishing that someone lives in a jurisdiction that was different where the crime actually occurred or was alleged to have occurred, and the laws in the state where they live are different within where the crime is alleged, in addition to it took place within a certain window of time, without the testimony of the actual individuals, because remember, we all have a Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination, it all gets to be very, very difficult. And so from a legal perspective, as a prosecutor, what I'm looking at, regardless of the challenges to the state constitutions and the law, is the difficulty that is going to ensue when you're talking about how to put all of these different pieces together without the aid of actual testimony from the defendants themselves.
The other thing I'm thinking about, because you mentioned the left, Ashley, and you're right to say that this has worked, the abortion issue has worked to the advantage of the left more recently. But now we're looking in red states, right, where there are possible challenges in places that might not have been challengeable before. There are now some contested, for example, congressional districts, even state legislative races that might not have been available before, what we've seen from the Trump administration. Having said that, on the right, there are few issues more galvanizing than abortion. There are few issues that put more boots on the ground, door to door, doing the hard work of campaigning, particularly in some races that aren't so high profile. Could it have that effect as well?
Well, you're absolutely right. It's galvanizing in the wake of the overturn of the Roe decision on both sides. It continues to be incredibly galvanizing on the right, and it can also, as we've seen, be incredibly galvanizing on the left. And President Trump sort of punted on this and was relieved to have it all sort of, each state will make their individual decisions. It will get kicked to the states. But the result of that is in these specific states who often have different laws, different bans, different cases, different challenges, essentially means that this issue in certain ways becomes more potent in some of those House races, statewide races, even local races. And the tenor and the result may very well depend on that specific state, that specific law, that specific ban or lack thereof, and, whatever case is making its way through the circuit as we head into a midterm election year.
Ashley Parker, Charles Coleman, thank you both.